What's up, everybody? Okay. I'm trying to finish this book. Got a lot done. A lot of reading done this week. The next subchapter, we just read about propaganda. Next subchapter, amusement. The techniques of amusement and diversion are different from the other human techniques we have considered. Materially, these techniques are identical with those of propaganda, films, radio, newspapers, and to a lesser degree, books and phonograph records. Oh, this was like before cassette tapes, jam, and 8 tracks. But the hierarchy of these means is not the same. For example, the cinema has first place and plays a more important role than the radio. By comparison, in the propaganda hierarchy, radio is the instrument of choice. Here too we find the exploitation of techniques of the subconscious, but they are exerted with much less pressure. Moreover, the range and sphere of these subconscious techniques is different. Amusement seeks to distract, propaganda to lead. The principal difference, however, relates to spontaneity. Propaganda technique is calculated and deliberate, whereas amusement technique is spontaneous and non-deliberate. The former is the result of the organizer's decision, the latter of the mob's need. Consider the average man as he comes home from his job. Very likely he has spent the day in a completely hygienic environment and everything has been done to balance his environment and lessen his fatigue. However, he has had to work without stopping and under constant pressure. Nervous fatigue has replaced muscular fatigue. When he leaves his job, his joy in finishing his stint is mixed with dissatisfaction with a work as fruitless as it is incomprehensible and as far from really productive work. At home he finds himself again, but what does he find? He finds a phantom. If he ever thinks, his reflections terrify him. Personal destiny is fulfilled only by death, but reflection tells him that for him there has not been anything between his adolescent adventures and his death. No point at which he himself ever made a decision or initiated a change. Changes are the exclusive prerogative of organized technical society, which one day may have decked him out in khaki to defend it, and another in stripes because he had sabotaged or betrayed it. There was no difference from one day to the next, yet life was never serene, for newspapers and news reports beset him at the end of the day and forced on him the image of an insecure world. If it was not hot or cold war, there were all sorts of accidents to drive to him the precariousness of his life. Torn between this precariousness and the absolute, unalterable determinateness of work, he has no place, belongs nowhere. Whether something happens to him or nothing happens, he is neither case the author of his destiny. He is in neither case the author of his destiny. The man of the technical society does not want to encounter his phantom. He resents being torn between the extremes of accident and technical absolutism. He dreads the knowledge that everything ends 6 feet under. He could accept the 6 feet under of his life if, and only if, life had some meaning and he could choose, say, to die. But when nothing makes sense, when nothing is the result of free choice, the final 6 feet under is an abominable injustice. Technical civilization has made a great error in not suppressing death. The only human reality is still intact. I think they have suppressed death now. Actually, China censors like skeletons and shit. Why is this so high? Man is still capable of lucid moments about the future. Propaganda techniques have not been able to wholly convince him that life has any meaning left, But amusement techniques have jumped into the breach and taught him at least how to flee the presence of death. He no longer needs faith or some difficult asceticism to deaden himself to his condition. The movies and television lead him straight into an artificial paradise. Rather than face his own phantom, he seeks film phantoms into which he can project himself and which permit him to live as he might have willed. For an hour or two he can cease to be himself, as his personality dissolves and fades into the anonymous mass of spectators. The film makes him laugh, cry, wonder, and love. He goes to bed with the leading lady, kills the villain, and masters life's absurdities. In short, he becomes a hero. Life suddenly has meaning. The theater presupposed an intellectual mechanism and left the spectator in some sense intact and capable of judgment. The motion picture, by means of its reality, integrates the spectator so completely that an uncommon spiritual force or psychological education is necessary to resist its pressures. In any case, people go to the movies to escape and consequently yield to its pressures. They find forgetfulness, and in forgetfulness the honed freedom they do not find in their work or at home. They live on screen a life they will never live in fact. It will be said that dreams and hope have been the traditional means of escape in times of famine and persecution. But today there is no hope, and the dream is no longer the personal act of an individual who freely chooses to flee some reality or other. It is a mass phenomenon of millions of men who desire to help themselves to a slice of life, freedom, and immortality. Separated from his essence, like a snail deprived of its shell, man is only a blob of plastic matter modeled after the moving images. There is a vast difference between the dreams and hopes of the past and those of the present. Formerly, with the conviction that things would change, hope was a beacon illuminating the future. Dreams represented flight, but flight into one's own self. In motion pictures, however, the future is not involved. On the strip of film, what ought to change has already changed. And the flight of cinematic dreams has nothing to do with the inner life. It concerns mere externals. When people leave the movie theater, they are full of the possibilities they experienced in the shadows. They have received their dose of inner life. Their problems, too, have undergone a transformation. They are now problems posed by the film, and they have the blissful, if contradictory, impression that these cinematic problems, which occupy the whole field of their consciousness, are both strong enough to pull all vexations to flight and unreal enough not to be troublesome. The modern passion for motion pictures is completely explained by the will to escape. Just as the tempo of work or the authority of the state presupposes spiritual adhesion and hence propaganda, so the human condition under the regime of technique supposes the escapism which diversional techniques offer. One cannot but marvel at an organization which provides the antidotes as it distills the poison. This is why they're legalizing weed, by the way, guys. And drugs are another form of this, right? It's escapism. Like, people can't handle the technological society, so they escape into fantasy or drug use or a relationship. Man, emptied by the technical mechanism of all personal interests, sometimes finds himself at home. What shall he talk about? Man has always had one unfailing subject of conversation: life's vexations. Not fear nor anguish, despair or passion. All that has always been suppressed in his subconscious. But he has always been able to talk companionably What the fuck? Companionably. Companion. Yeah, how do you pronounce this? Good question.
Companionably.
Companionably. It's like weird. I don't know. Sounds weird to me. Companionably. Just sounds weird. Okay. But he has always been able to talk companionably about vexations, things, hail on his vines, mildew, machinery out of order, a troublesome prostate, and so forth. Now technique intervenes, repairs everything, and creates a world in which everything works well or well enough. Even as some petty vexations persist, the individual feels no need to speak of them and turns toward the efficient silence fillers, television and radio, prodigiously useful refuges for those who find that family life has become impossible. Jean Lalope and Jean Nellis evince a curious optimism when they write that radio and television have reconstituted the family. Television, doubtless, facilitates material reunion. Because of it, the children no longer go out in the evenings. The members of the family are indeed all present materially, but centered on the television set. They are unaware of one another. If they cannot stand or understand one another, if they have nothing to say, radio and television make this easy to bear by re-establishing external relations and avoiding friction. Thanks to these technical devices, it is no longer necessary for the members of a family to have anything at all to do with one another, or even to be conscious of the fact that the family relations are impossible. It is no longer necessary to make decisions. It is possible for a married couple to live together for a long time without ever meeting each other in the resonant emptiness of television. This, too, is a curious means of escape, of hiding from others instead of from oneself. It is the modern mask man puts on everything, which unfortunately lacks the virtues of the ancient mask, demoniac and divine. One of the best studies of the problem of the radio, that of Roger Viel, reminds us that the ear is the great fault in man. Through it he perceives the silence of the infinite spaces. It is the point of origin of his great disturbances. The ear, unlike the eye, evokes mystery and renunciation. It is the center of anguish and anxiety, and radio fills this, opening, protecting man against the silence and the mystery by amusing him. The program makers know all this and create their programs as a function of this escapism, not for motives of crass commercialism or Machiavellianism, as some people seem to think, but because they themselves partake of the human condition and seek protection against its anguish. It follows, then, that the radio makes a clean break between everyday social reality and the dreams and narcotics which its duty is to dispense. To use the word of Viel, to use the words of Viel, it must be one of the liberating distractions. It must deliver the individual from objective constraints. It is public utility dealing in moral comfort, charged with offsetting the tragedies of family living, social pressures, and the vexations of modern life. The radio must compensate for the inhumanities of life in today's cities. In a milieu in which human being is unable to make true friendships or to have profound experiences, the radio must furnish him with the appearances of reality, acquaintances, and human proximity. It must captivate and reassure him. But Viel rightly inquires whether the radio may not gradually habituate to mere auditory images those to whom it gives the illusion of belonging, and what is worse, condition them to be absence of interlocutors. Unfortunately, the answer to Viel's question is clear. There is no other comparable instrument of human isolation. The radio and television, even more than the radio, shuts up the individual in an echoing mechanical universe in which he is alone. He already knew little enough about his neighbors, and now the separation between him and his fellows is further widened. Men become accustomed to listening to machines and talking to machines, as, for example, with telephones and dictaphones. What the fuck's a dictaphone? Is it a phone that looks like a dict? What is a dictaphone? It's a dictation machine? A dictaphone is a high-performing voice recorder designed for use by busy professionals. Oh, it's like note to self. Remember this shit.
As I learned to express myself in other ways, I started making little notes to myself.
Note to self. Remember, Aunt Jenny is your aunt.
The weekend update ones.
Passed a measure which would prevent prison inmates from being counted as household members for purposes of food stamp eligibility. Note to self, find new way of fraudulently obtaining food stamps. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has warned that an
He just acknowledged that shit bombed. Oh, fucking Norm, you're the best. Why'd you have to die? You asshole. Men become accustomed to listening to machines and talking to machines, as for example telephones and dictaphones. No more face-to-face encounters, no more dialogue. In a perpetual monologue by means of which he escapes the anguish of silence and the inconvenience of neighbors, man finds refuge in the lap of technique, which envelops him in solitude and at the same time reassures him with all its hoaxes. Television becomes of its power of fascination and its capacity of visual and auditory penetration is probably the technical instrument which is most destructive of personality and of human relations. What man seeks is evidently an absolute distraction, a total obliviousness of himself and his problems, and the simultaneous fusion of his consciousness with an omnipresent technical diversion. In diversion, we are at a stage of development in which technique answers the needs of men in a technical society, but a society in which they are still free to use or not to use the available technical means. If you wish to escape, says technique, you are welcome to try. Modern men, however, are beginning to be aware of their need at all costs not to challenge the technical situation, and to recognize that technical means exist to meet this need. Take, for example, the extraordinary success of Butlin's vacation camps in Great Britain. Butlin grasped the fact that in a world at once exacting and depersonalizing in the extreme, the vacation most men prefer must be a genuine vacuum, an even greater depersonalization which gives the impression of freedom but which never allows the individual to come face to face with himself, even materially. To achieve this end, Butlin in 1938 organized his family vacation camps. The vacationer leaves in a crowd on a strict timetable judiciously arranged so that each day will be different, giving the impression of constant novelty and variety. Games, songs, theater, eating, fun succeed one another at a rapid tempo from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight. The important thing, says Butlin, is that no one is ever left to himself even for a moment. Everything takes place in a spirit of gaiety and liveliness and under the direction of game leaders who are specialists. all available means are employed to persuade the individual that he is happy. Since each camp can accommodate 4,000 persons, there is little difficulty in arranging for the vacationer to pass his holiday, which lasts a fortnight, among a crowd of people. The whole thing represents an elaborate and rigorous enterprise for becoming unconscious, carried out by a technique described in detail by Butlin himself. Butlin minces no words. The problem, as he sees it, is to make his customers systematically lose consciousness, not as before from political motives, but from motives of pure entertainment. Here is technique put to the service of a kind of Pascalian distraction. Not exactly the same kind, since it is not so much a matter of dodging the dilemma of man facing eternity as of dodging the conflict between man and his situation in this life, or forgetting to meditate not so much on the two infinitives, something most men are incapable of, as on the obvious crashing absurdity of life in a technical world. The average man is inevitably conscious of this. He must therefore becloud his consciousness to any cost, and in this, it seems, he is in essential accord with the needs of a technical society. Our thesis is verified by the prodigious success of Butlin's camps, a success which is perhaps the most astonishing thing about them. In 1947, 400,000 persons vacationed in them, and the number has been growing steadily. And bear in mind that these figures represent Englishmen, who by their very nature would seem the most hostile to this kind of thing. This demonstrates the complete adaptation of technical amusement to technical society and to their sociological function. How illusory is the effort to make of the motion pictures an educative art and a means of instruction. Art, films, and films with philosophic or political intent simply do not correspond to the wishes of the movie-going public. It can, of course, be legitimately maintained that motion pictures are nonetheless a means of educating the public. But here we must guard against a certain confusion. Education of the spectator's taste and understanding takes place but only incidentally. The clouding of his consciousness is paramount, and art and science can contribute to this end. The film can succeed only if it puts art to the service of a sociological, necessary, and technically possible enterprise. Only if art and indoctrination disguised as science becomes the new means of wrenching men from reality. If this were not the case, the public would not have patronized films like the first ones of Orson Welles. Spontaneous or organized mechanisms of entertainment, such as I have described, are useful only to the degree that propaganda technique is undeveloped. Propaganda, as it develops, tends to assimilate amusement, which either makes its appearance as an efficient propaganda medium or at a later stage is exploited for purposes of human adaptation. This last makes it impossible to agree with Veal's suggestion that Swedish or Russian radio is not concerned with distractions, with building up a social structure of lies and soporifics, because the citizens of these states have been set free and no longer feel the wearisome continuity of daily obligations. Veal, it may be noted, tends implicitly to see this fact one of the benefits of socialism. In reality, the condition he describes is due to the fact that the Swedes are the most integrated and adapted of all mankind. They have alienated themselves to the greatest possible degree in the organization, so that they are no longer conscious of any cleavage between personality and technique, and do not therefore need an artificial paradise. In the case of the Russians, propaganda has cleverly absorbed and replaced amusement. The Russian citizen, subjected to his government's daily propaganda, the most highly developed in the world, is unaware of anxiety. But then, the same was true of Hitler's Germany. Okay. Let's stop there. The next chapter is sport. Actually, I wanted to read that one too. This is a long ass chapter. I'm almost done with the book. Oh, I have this shit muted.
Some
Oh,
manner,
whoops.
by some kind of force, if something's true.
Sure,
right?
it's the universe. What next?
So your claim. So then you're a pantheist.
No.
Because you believe the thing that
No, I'm
dictates
not.
the truth. Yes.
No, I say that all
yes.
factual statements are made with reference to the universe itself. Right?
Yeah. So
Which
you
is true. Which, by the way, hang on. Which, by the way, is true even in your worldview. You just say that God was the one who decided the fact would be true.
Actually, God can transcend the orderly mechanics that he put in place.
Yeah. Okay, but you know,
So
yeah, but
actually,
that's fine. That's
a
fine,
bit
Fox.
more
Right?
to that in our worldview.
That's fine, Fox. Right? But we would agree, even in your worldview, right? When you make a statement like, I don't know, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, it is in reference to the universe and what we experience, right? In your case, you then say, however,
Ultimately, in
God
reference to
decided
the-
it would be 9.8 meters per second squared.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
God is
why the God bit?
Well, God is the thing that institutes the truth value of claims.
Isn't that
So
foundationalism?
That's I mean, in my worldview, me getting to the point where I define God as the thing that institutes the truth value of claims ultimately isn't um, like a dogmatic belief, because it's based in a foundational position that's based in a coherent system overall. It's not that and the foundational positions are revelatory. So it's not like dogmatic. It's not like I've just taken something and presupposed it. It's
Wait,
like
but
we have been revealed something, and the
yes,
truth value of that has been made clear to us through the revelatory process, the
okay.
self-revealing revelation of the Christian God.
Yes,
Right?
that's fine. But my
So that's
problem with
well different
revelation is that
to
either
like
you
your
presuppose your sense perception is
non-conscious
accurate and therefore you're
God,
getting
is what
revelation
you call it.
accurately, or you beg the question by defining it as accurate.
No, I'm just saying the thing that dictates the truth value of claims ultimately is God. So in your worldview, if you want to claim that the thing that dictates the truth value of claims ultimately is, the scientific method, then, the scientific method's your God.
Right. Okay, so no, I said that all factual statements are made with reference to experience, right? Which isn't really talking about an ultimate at all. I'm not
Yeah,
even
but then
talking about a foundation, really.
I can say
Right?
that any true statement that you make is in reference to the ultimacy that dictates the truth value of claims.
Why do you think there's an ultimacy that gives foundation to fact? Why do
Because
you even think that's necessary?
if in any system that has a rule set, there's in every system that we know that has a rule set, it's been created by a mind, and then in this
No.
system where there's a rule set, we should assume, based on our understanding of systems with rule sets needing a mind in order to create
So,
them, that this
so no,
system
I
we're living in that
disagree.
has a rule set also requires a mind to
Wait,
have
wait,
created it.
wait, but
So
we already disagree on this because, right, because what you've just said would necessarily entail that nature itself was governed by a mind, which is the disagreement.
no, what I'm saying is that in a system, any system, right, where there's a rule set, and we're able to verify whether or not it was created by a human or not, right? We've been able to find that in all cases where that is the case, it is
No, we
constructed by
haven't. Wait.
Yes, it is.
No, we
Every
haven't.
system
The universe.
can
Hang on,
verify
wait. Your
whether it was
entire
constructed by a
worldview
human
has that the
mind.
universe operates according to a rule set, and that wasn't made by fucking people.
How do you know it wasn't made by a conscious mind?
I didn't say that. I said it wasn't made by
Okay, so then
people.
in that case you can't verify, but in another case
That's
you can
my
verify.
point to
So
you.
calm down.
Hang,
Listen,
wait,
bro.
that's my
Listen,
listen to what
listen,
you just
because you've
said.
not
You
understood
said,
my
"Can we
point.
verify
You
it was
haven't
made by a
understood.
mind?" And your answer was no.
Oh my
You made the
god.
statement that every system
Bro,
which
you've
has
not
rules is
listened to
made
the
by a
point.
mind. That
No, I
presupposes
never
God.
said that. I said
That's exactly what you said.
in every case that we can verify, we have knowledge that in every case that we can verify, where a system has a rule set, it's been constructed by a human mind.
Isn't that
Only in
because
cases where we can verify, right?
isn't that
So,
because the only cases we can verify are the rule sets that we create?
look, that's
Therefore
not the
making what you
point
said
here.
meaningless?
No, it doesn't make it
Of
meaningless.
course
It
it
means
fucking
that,
does.
no, it
If
doesn't.
I
It
can't
doesn't. It means
verify
that
rule
you'll
sets potentially
justify.
made by amoeba,
It
then
means that you've
how
got.
the fuck would I be able to make that
What it
statement?
actually means is that you have a just reason to believe in the Christian system,
No,
but
you don't.
you don't have any good reason to believe in your hyper skeptical solipsism.
I didn't say.
What
Wait,
the
hang on.
fuck?
One. I'm not a well. One, I'm an epistemic solipsist. I'm not a hard solipsist.
But you
Two,
are as
I
well.
was simply talking about what solipsists actually do believe, right? So
Because you're
solipsists,
an
as I
epistemic,
said,
you must have
would
flipped the paper
take
about that.
experience to be tautologically true. And three, no, what you just said was rules made by humans are made by humans. That's all. That's what your statement
No,
just
I
was.
didn't. I said
It's
that in
exactly what your statement
systems,
just
I said
was.
in systems where we can verify
Are all of those systems
whether
made by
a rule
humans?
set. I said in systems where we can verify whether the rule set was created by a conscious mind, we have verified in 100% of cases where we can verify that those systems are created by minds. So
Okay.
in a system that we've stumbled across where, there's a rule set, then we can, based on our understanding, right, based on a peer review system, justify the belief that it was created by a conscious mind.
Okay. So
What? No.
no, you can't.
Yeah,
Exactly. Hang on,
yes, you
stop.
can.
Hang on, stop talking for 1 second, and let me ask very clear, clarifying question. Are all of the systems that you believe we can verify man-made?
No, I think that we can verify the ultimate system that we live in as created by a god.
Okay, but when you made so when you made the statement, all systems we can verify, you were evidently talking in a sense that me and you would agree, right? So in that
Yeah, in
case,
all of the cases where we
so
agree,
in that case,
then
all
you
of
would
those
agree with me.
hang on, stop. All of those systems are man-made, correct? They're not made by amoeba. They're not made by
In
fucking
all of the
jackals. They're made
cases,
by humans, right?
in all of the cases that you would agree with, then they're made by man. But the
Cool.
only reason that you would deny the God position is because basically you hate God. You're suppressing the truth within righteousness, and you
No,
hate
the reason
God. And so what you'll do is you'll turn your back on God, and you'll find any justification that you can to try
no,
to deny God. And it literally talks about people like you in the Bible. You're willing to look at your hand in
Whoa,
front of
whoa,
your
whoa,
face.
whoa!
stop,
You're
You're
going
willing
off the
to
rails
look
a
at
little
your
bit, man.
dude, stop with the
just let me
preaching,
finish.
right?
You're willing to look at your hand in front of your face and say my hand doesn't exist just so that you can deny
No, no, no,
God.
no, 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 no,
I
no, no.
never said that. I don't look. I never said that, and I even said the
Is it possible?
solipsists. I even said.
Microphone
Okay,
check.
Hang
look
on.
at your
I
hand.
even said
Look
the
at your hand in
solipsist
front of your
wouldn't say
face.
that.
Is it possible that your hand doesn't exist
What do you mean by exist?
in an objective material form?
In that case, I cannot philosophically prove
So you don't know. So you
that.
don't know your hand exists in front of your face. So
In a
in order to
material
deny
external
God,
world,
because you
neither do
hate
you.
God, you deny the existence of yourself.
No,
What the hell is this
no.
argument going on?
This is so stupid. As I already said, in a solipsistic state, right? Experience would be yourself. You don't need to exist in a physical
But then
external
you're just
world
denying the
to
necessity.
exist. That's not what fucking existence
Then you're
is.
just denying the necessity of the objective world that you live in.
I'm sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm saying you can't prove the external world. That's a very
Yeah,
different
you're
Wait,
thing.
wait, wait,
denying the
wait, wait,
necessity.
I'm
No!
so confused about what you guys are talking about. It sounds like
This
one
guy
guy.
basically got wrecked. That's what's happened. He's
No,
like an atheist.
no,
No,
Anything.
you've
no,
really
no.
done
You
nothing.
walked yourself into a world that I just don't
Oh
understand.
yeah, because you're an atheist as well. Like you're a homosexual atheist that's suppressing the truth with your unrighteousness, and now you're
It's
here to preach
interesting
to us
how you
all
have to go to
about
Adham
how
because you can't meet the
you
logical
know
argument.
the
Wait,
truth.
wait,
What do you
wait, wait,
know?
wait.
What do you know other than the fact that you
You
exist?
can't
What do
meet the
you know?
logical argument, can you?
You don't even know your hand exists, bro.
Wait, 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 wait,
You
wait,
don't
wait.
even know that your hand exists.
So your reference is that if we can define a system, a set of rules, that someone had to put them in place, right? That's what you're basically saying.
I'm saying, yeah, that in all cases where we can verify that, and there's a
They're
rule
all
set,
man-made.
that the rule set has been instituted by a conscious mind. So in the
Okay.
case where we stumble across a rule set and we can't pinpoint whether it's necessarily been created by a conscious mind, you would be correct in assuming, based on historical evidence,
No.
that it was
No.
created by
No,
a
that's not how
No,
science works at all. That you just made a weird
I'm
conjecture.
not being funny, but that is a good justification.
it's not a
I don't
good.
know.
Just hang on,
That's how they fucking
Fox,
justified the
Fox,
idea that
Fox.
we're a
Hang on,
causal system.
Fox. Are you not just making a new age version of the fucking watchmaker argument?
Look. No, actually, it's a different kind of argument. But
Fucking identical to
you
me.
can call it.
Argument.
No, it's
The
actually
argument.
different. I'm not saying that it
Hang
requires
on,
intelligent
hang on.
design. I'm saying
Can I
that
show you?
based
Can
on
I
a
show you where
previous.
it's similar?
I'm
Can I show
making
you
the
where it's similar?
historical. I'm
Yeah,
There's
referencing
no
the
historical.
there is
historical.
no historical.
There is no
Fuck me.
historical reference
Hey,
between those.
Dude,
Yes, there is.
the argument used to be complexity, right? When humans do it, right, is made
Dude,
by
I've got that
a
argument too.
mind.
That's not
We
the
see
same argument.
complexity in nature, therefore it must have been made by a mind. This was debunked obviously because
That's a different
it's
argument.
just a generalization of human behavior to the external nature, which is just not logically justified. You're doing the exact same thing by going, well, we create
Actually,
rules,
no.
therefore all rules must be created
No,
by
I
a
never did
mind.
that. No, I
It's
didn't say that. I
exactly
said in
what you
all cases.
said,
No. I said in all cases where we can verify
which are all
So,
that
human.
is the
so,
case.
so
Which are
if we
all
can't
human.
verify,
Even look, just let me finish my sentence. That even you, as an atheist, would have justification for believing that the
No, you
system in
wouldn't.
which you live is created by a conscious mind.
No,
You would.
you
That's a good
wouldn't.
justification.
no,
No,
it's
it's
not a good
Not at
justification.
all. You're
hey,
referencing historical cases.
Fox. Hang on a sec. I need a mod moment here. Knight, I'm going to mute you every time you speak up because your mic is horrible and it's distorted. So
I'm
just
sorry.
don't.
Is this better?
Yeah, well, no,
That's
it's
a bit
still
better.
really, but stop interjecting though. That's my main thing. Your mic, fix your mic or whatever, but stop interjecting all the time.
So my problem is you're making a hasty generalization from a subset, right? The subset being human-made systems with rules to all systems with rules. And you haven't
No.
even once tried to explain why rules necessarily require a mind to have made them up. You have not explained
I
that.
didn't
You
try to
haven't
do
said
that.
why
I
it
didn't try
can't.
to
Hang
do
on,
that.
hang on. Okay, in which case, there is no reason for anyone to make the leap from, well, human systems are made by minds to, therefore, all systems must be mind made. There's
never
no
said
Wouldn't
reason
you
to
do
make
that
that
and
leap.
just assume that
I
all
never
humans
said
are
that you
gods then?
should. I never said that you should move position so drastically. All I'm saying is that you would have a justification
What's the
for
justification?
believing. The justification is that in all of the situations where you have seen a system with rules, right? It's been created by a conscious mind. And so when you can, in all situations where you can verify a system, how a system with rules came about, then you would come to the conclusion that it came about with a conscious mind in all situations where you can verify. So in a situation where you claim you can't verify, a one-off situation where you've got this system with rules that you live within, then you'd be justified in holding the position based on historic evidence that this system was created by a conscious mind. It's not
Okay.
necessarily the case based on
Hang
your
on.
perception, but it is justified to
Yes.
believe. You'd be justified
Okay.
believing that because you
So,
have a form of
yeah.
justification.
There's no right. So my question is, one, there's a couple questions. One, can you tell me how that is not just a hasty generalization of a subset? And then two, right? and this is probably the more
What do you mean
important
by a
one.
hasty generalization of a subset? Do you want to put that in context, and then we'll move
Yeah,
on to the next?
you're taking specifically human-made things and generalizing them to nature in its entirety, right? And
No,
human
I'm
and
taking
hang on, and
systems. I'm taking.
human-made things are a subset of nature, right?
Well, you could
The
always
second,
define things
hang
as
on,
a
stop,
subset of
stop, stop,
something
stop,
else,
stop, stop.
unless you're defining the
The
ultimacy.
second, Jesus Christ, the second part of this, right, is interesting as well. Why are you treating nature as a single thing that's governed by a single rule, as opposed to treating every phenomena separately? In which case, there are far more examples of things that have rules that I can't verify are mind-made than there are that I can.
That you can't verify and are mind-made.
Yeah. So for example, plasma physics,
Gravity.
gravity, fucking charges,
That's not.
uh,
That's look. Look.
atoms.
Yeah. So then what you're doing is
Biogenesis.
you're saying, oh yeah,
Why are
here's
you
a
taking
system.
all of these and stating that they are a
Here's
single thing,
here's.
whereas all
Well,
of human-made
okay.
rules are separate things,
Generalization.
to justify your statement? Why are you
Like
doing that?
you're just saying, oh yeah, this is like some kind of subset. Like I'm talking about the thing that dictates the rule set for everything in reality, and you're saying, well, maybe there could be some kind of subset. Like you've got no justification for
No.
believing that there's some
But
kind
I
of
said
subset
no, that's
or
not what I said. I said
anything
that
like that.
human-made. Hang on, that's not what I said. I said that human-made rules are a subset of rules, correct?
I yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that they're
Okay. So in
rules if
that
a
case,
human
why?
made them.
Hang on. So then, why are you saying human-made rules were made by a mind? Therefore, all rules
That's
are
not
made
what
by
I
a
said,
mind.
bro. Come
It's
on, man.
exactly what you inferred.
Listen to the words I'm saying. Listen to the
For
words
me
I'm
to
saying.
go from,
Listen,
well, humans
bro.
have made
Just
rules
please,
and
you keep
those were
straw
made by
manning my
minds,
position,
to this
bro.
gives
That's
me
not my
evidence that
position.
all rules are made by mind,
No,
requires
no.
some logic, and you've given
No,
none.
it's like saying this. In every situation where I've seen a car driving down the road, it's been operated by a human. So the next time I see a car driving down the road, I'd be justified in believing that it was being operated by a human. That's
Okay.
literally the level of argument that I'm
No, it
making.
isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, okay, I'll tell you exactly why it's not, right? So I can say, I have seen
Maybe.
Scrabble. These rules are evidently made by humans. But I have this example of how fucking thermal physics works. And I have this example of how atoms collide. And I can't see a mind in either of those. Therefore, Scrabble wasn't made by a mind, because in the most cases I've seen, there's no evidence of a mind. It's
Dude, I
nonsense.
don't
The
know
only
even what the hell
justification
you're
you
talking
have,
about
hang
with
on,
your
stop.
Scrabble
The only
argument, man.
play you have is to pretend that nature is governed by a single rule set, which seems bizarre to me. It just seems
What,
to
so
be
you believe
arbitrary.
that
A-
what you say?
And then
Couldn't you
stating how,
separate
but
it?
every situation that humans have made is separate. Therefore, by numbers, it's more important. Not what I said.
No,
It's not what I said. I said there's
so
no evidence.
the claimant is it.
That's not Jesus Christ.
You
Okay,
remember
so
this argument,
okay,
Wow,
hey?
so
that's
Remember
even
apparently,
Brian
worse. No,
Republic?
no,
so
you've
apparently,
gone off the rails on
presupposing
that one.
can't listen to when I said very specifically, here's a bunch of evidence, here's a bunch of rules that I cannot show are made by minds. That's what I said. I didn't say that are not made by
So
minds. I
you
said
so in
I have
those
no
cases,
evidence in these cases that there's any
yeah.
mind
So then
involved, right?
those
What
cases can be
Fox wants me to
dismissed
do, Fox,
because we're
shut the
talking
fuck up.
specific. We're
Fox,
talking
shut the fuck
specifically
up.
about
What Fox
engineering
Yeah,
wants to
level
do,
right. Yeah,
what I was still talking and they started
You're
I
interrupting.
know.
on.
What
You're
Fox
Come
on.
on, you.
wants, yeah, what
Yeah,
Fox,
Fox. Hang on, I gotta say,
yeah, sure,
Fox and P Mars. Let them have a break. Stop. Don't dogpile them. All right.
yeah.
If you
Okay.
wanna, it's a good conversation. I'm kind of enjoying it.
I
So,
appreciate his efforts in trying
yeah,
to, give some kind of substance
sure.
to
All right.
his nihilistic atheistic worldview. But
Not
like
even a
obviously me and
nihilist.
I'm sure me and P will try and hold off a little bit from that here
Ah,
on in.
not even
Sorry
a
about that.
nihilist.
Well, let him finish what the count, what he was accused of, and explaining that's not the case. Let him finish that.
Yes.
Sorry
So
about that,
so
yeah.
no, I'm not. Yeah. So I'm not claiming anything along the lines of natural laws do not have a mind behind them. I'm saying that I have no evidence that they necessarily do. What Fox wants me to do is say, well, human rules have a mind behind them, therefore these rules are very likely to have a mind behind them. My accusation is that this is just a hasty generalization of a subset of rules.
I never said that it's very likely. I said that you'd have justification. That even an atheist can
But
have
what's the
justification.
But I don't see the justification if all I
The
have is
justification
a
is
small
exactly
subset
the
of
same.
rules.
But
The
so there's.
justification. Go on.
Do you have
Sorry,
any instances where we can prove that that God has some type of background control on a set of rules that he's established?
I mean, obviously,
It's
we could refer to the Bible, but you wouldn't take that as evidence.
no,
No.
because evidence, scientific evidence requires verification via testing or replication.
Yeah.
So, do you have any instances of that? So,
Yeah.
True.
Can I ask them some
So
questions?
essentially,
I'd take a philosophical argument that gets me to therefore God. I'd take
Yeah, can I ask
even
them
though I
some
don't
questions?
I don't think it exists. But I'd take it. So,
Do you accept the PSR,
remind me.
the principle of sufficient reason?
I'm gonna have to look it up again because it's been a while since I've discussed it. But...
It's just that every contingent fact has an explanation.
Every contingent fact, I think, probably. Yes.
All right, can I give you an argument?
I just need to read up on it. Yeah, sure. I'll read up on it while you're talking. That's fine.
Sure. Well, the first premise is just the PSR. Every contingent fact has an explanation. All right. Premise 2 is there is a contingent fact that includes all other contingent facts. That's the BCCF. It's a big conjunctive contingent fact. Conclusion, therefore, there's an explanation of this fact. This explanation must involve a necessary object. The necessary object is God.
I don't understand.
I've
got a couple of
don't that?
questions.
I mean,
I got a
isn't that
couple of
required?
questions. Wait,
Because
hang on. Wait. I don't understand how the fact which contains all fact would be contingent.
Well, supposedly, there's going to be an explanation for why there is contingency.
Sure, but the fact that it contains all facts, including why there is contingency, how could that fact be contingent?
Well, that's what makes it the explanation of that fact necessary. Because if there could be another way for that one, it would just regress into contingent fact. Yep, and then it would become part of the BCCF again.
Yeah, so I think I think that I'd reject the second premise. I don't agree that I do not understand how the fact that contains all facts and how they are contingent could itself be contingent. So that would be a non-contingent fact, which would instantiate all the rest of the facts, and it wouldn't require some overgrounding.
Well, if there was a contingent fact that didn't, are you saying like there is a contingent fact that explains all other contingent facts that doesn't have an explanation?
No, I just disagree that that fact would be contingent.
Yeah, well, all right, then you're just skipping right ahead to premise 3 then. That one is the necessary fact.
But a necessary fact is not the same as there being an object or entity which grounds that fact.
Is in this case.
Wait, so God is just words in this then?
A fact is a proposition that the proposition represents a state of affairs.
Yeah, I don't understand. I
But
don't.
how would the fact that it contains all facts not be contingent, man?
Because what would it be contingent upon?
Well, I
The
mean,
necessary
you're
fact?
talking about a grouping of all facts, like both the contingent ones and the necessary ones, right? Or do contingent facts not exist in your worldview? Or
No, what I was just presented with, that we have a fact which contains all contingent facts and how they are contingent. In this case, I don't understand how that is contingent.
Well, it doesn't have to be. If you think that already gets you the necessary fact, then that's fine.
Yeah, but that would be the same as saying that all facts are in and of themselves, what would the word be? Like necessary in a sense. They're just like
Oh yeah,
defined
no, this
straight away.
argument gets you to modal collapse.
Necessitarian. No.
Yeah.
I
It
think
seems that
I'm
it
a
would
bit of a
be.
necessitarian.
would
It seems
just
that
get you
the set of
Christian.
all
Facts
contingent
must be
facts
facts.
would have to be contingent, right? Because like, why does the set have like these specific contingent facts instead of another set of contingent facts?
Oh,
But like I
because
said, this
because the one
argument.
that's presented is that it's got all contingent facts and then non-contingent explanations.
Oh my
In
god,
which
I
case,
got you,
I
man.
don't
Come on,
understand how
sorry.
that could be contingent, because
Like I
it
said,
wouldn't make any sense to me.
this argument commits you
Intuitively.
to necessitarianism.
Well, the thing is, I don't necessarily know if there would be a fact that contains all contingent facts. I'd have to think about it.
I'm not particularly familiar
I'm
with
not
this
gonna lie. I'm not
argument.
gonna lie and say that I
So
thought
think
about
about it
that
causally.
What it
before.
sounds like you're saying is, since we don't have an explanation, the use of God is an okay explanation.
Well, what do you think God is in this argument? Because the only thing you know about God is that it's necessary.
Sorry, one sec. So at best, what that argument, I suppose, gets you to is
A necessary
there
object.
is something non-contingent. That's
Yeah,
what it gets you to.
that's all this argument's making a case for.
But wouldn't you
Which
just
I would,
replace God with the unknown?
look, even as an atheist, I wouldn't like necessarily be opposed to that. Like
Yeah,
there
I'm saying an
being
atheist could
something
too.
non-contingent. I'd have to think about it in more detail. As I said, I've not looked at PSR in much
Yeah,
detail.
but can you summarize like your argument briefly? So like,
Who?
what's your argument? What's
Wait,
the
wait,
conclusion?
can outsider summarize?
My argument?
Well, I mean, or dreads, whatever, man.
This is not part of like the actual argument really. Albedo was just giving me a
I just gave him the
PSR thing.
contingency argument.
Yeah, effectively.
It
But
sounds
no, there
like
being
one
something
person.
non-contingent is not something that I'd be like necessarily opposed to.
Yeah,
Either.
I mean, atheists accept this
But you
argument too
don't
sometimes.
necessarily believe it. Sorry, Albedo.
No, you're good, man. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know. So he doesn't necessarily believe that each individual, cause and effect action is contingent on a previous state of affairs. Do you think that that's necessarily the case? Do you believe in a cause and effect universe? Do you think it's necessarily cause and effect, or do you believe that it's not necessarily cause? There's not necessarily a cause and effect nature to
yeah, that's
events
fine.
and
Yeah,
the way they play
I
out?
think we wouldn't be able to necessarily prove it either way, but I think you kind of have to just like suppose cause and effect to operate, right? It's like
So
it would
you're a
be
presuppositional.
nonsensical to not presuppose cause and effect, 'cause you have to use cause and effect every time you do anything. It's like would be absurd in that case. So sure.
It's another
Cool.
presupper down, Albedo. You've done it again. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. That's surely presuppositional. I mean, people accuse, Christians of being presuppositionalists when they've got a revelatory epistemology, and it's just disrespectful to keep calling them presuppositionalists when they're clearly not. And then
That's
the
because it's not
atheists,
an argument, right?
the atheists are presuppositionalists. This guy, he holds the position of cause and effect as a presupposition that he works as essentially an axiomatic position
necessary.
that justifies anything that he believes. It's like a underpinning factor in
Oh,
his
I don't have
worldview.
I don't have a problem with the reason people talk about presup Christians is because presup Christians are a very specific type of Christian that actually do presuppose all the same things as atheists. They just put God in front of it as a presuppositional justification for their other presuppositions. The reason atheists like okay, well you can say it's yeah, okay,
Conlock
that's
really
fine. That's
coined the
fine.
revelatory
Nah. I mean,
Guys,
dread is
epistemology. I feel like
100%
that's
spot
a
on,
much
man.
better
guys, you can
come on.
guys, you can get annoyed and you can respond. Just let me finish, right? The
Sorry,
reason
man.
atheists don't like this type of Christian is because one, these type of Christians aren't interested in trying to actually convince atheists. Usually, they're usually just there to try and beat down someone who's not intellectually ready, right? So we don't like that. We think so. Yeah,
That's
like
funny, though. That is
people.
funny.
It's
You've
true.
got to
Like
admit
people like
that's
Darth
funny.
Dawkins do just quite maybe I'm not allowed to name people by names, do just quite like getting people in a room who have no idea about philosophy and just beating them over the head for public entertainment. And we think that that's, it's kind of fucked up in a sense, right? So we don't like that, right? But the problem that we have is that we see that, okay, so you're taking all the same
You
precepts
see
from our point of
Hammurabi
view,
and
adding an extra
Hammurabi
one, and then
and
adding the
Krauss
extra one doesn't add anything, is what we usually see.
didn't.
How do you
They usually
know?
ask you for
How
support.
do you
But what
know
do you
that God
experience?
explains this stuff though?
Yeah, what if it's just Jeff
Be
in
more.
accounting?
Well, no. To be fair to them, it gives an explanation. They just have no evidence that the explanation is true.
That is actually correct.
We do, yeah.
Can you
Such
verify
as
that? Can someone else replicate it? That's
Oh God.
but that's not
Albedo's
Oh my
doesn't
God.
get
scientific
Okay.
evidence.
Albedo's. Wait, hang on.
This guy's like
Albedo doesn't
mixing and
get you
matching
to that.
Well,
stuff.
you can
Yeah,
just
no,
make logical
presuppositionless
arguments anyway.
apologetics. It's not about evidence, man. The real precepts are explicit about it too. like like it's about having God as a foundational belief that justifies all your other beliefs, right?
Yeah, what do they mean by evidence?
Yeah,
Does
we
he
mean
accept
we mean
testimony? Is
scientific.
he only accepting
That's
empirical
really
evidence?
easy. I can tell you what evidence means.
Yeah, we can define evidence in a very broad sense, right? Like anything that justifies anything, right?
Guys, guys.
But even if we use the most
Guys,
loose
it's
definition of evidence,
really.
it
How
definitely.
dare you guys bring the dictionary into this?
No. No. Okay, the evidence that most atheists will accept
The available body of facts and information indicating whether belief positions
two
hold true or
kinds,
valid.
right? No, it's of two kinds. It's of scientific, so empirical, or it's of philosophical, right? If you can show a necessary philosophical thing, then atheists will generally accept it. Well, I disagree with most atheists then.
No, it doesn't have to be
Disagree that's
scientific
true
or
anyway.
empirical. There's other kinds of evidence, obviously.
That's
If you take this
philosophical.
natural phenomenon and you say, well, based
Like,
off of my logic, there's evidence, not any type of scientific support for whatever's happening.
No one disagreed.
who is disputing that though? Who's disputing that? Like for real?
No, he didn't.
Oh.
He's wait, no.
He-
Felix made a very specific point, which is, look, you can't making a logical argument has no bearing on like a scientific claim. So like you could make a wonderful logical argument that gravity is meant to act in this way, and then it just fucking doesn't. It'd be irrelevant. So when we're making empirical claims, we look at empirical evidence because your rationality has fuck all to do with what's true in that case, right? Whereas if we're talking about philosophy, then yeah, sure, you make philosophical arguments. Your philosophical arguments will have some presuppositions and some statements that you start with, right? And we either agree or we disagree, and then we have to hash that out philosophically, right? It depends what you're talking about. If you're making a scientific claim, philosophy is going to get you fucking nowhere. If you're
I don't
making a
know. When you
philosophical
say
claim, then philosophy is the
when
only
you
thing.
say like your rationality doesn't necessarily have any bearing on the truth. I mean, that depends on your worldview. In a Christian worldview, we believe that God's given us the faculties to perceive his revelation. And so your rationality will have some bearing on the truth. Like if you're able to perceive, the material world in an objective manner and you're rational, then, you'll probably be able to perceive the truth to some degree reliably.
But how do you justify that?
You can't perceive the science
Wait,
not
no.
existing.
Because
Hang on,
if you accept the
Fox,
Christian worldview, then you can have a coherent explanation.
How Christian do you
and
have to be to add
I mean,
electrons
isn't
to
that
the
circular though?
in the objective material world?
It is
And
circular.
it's not, because you can do a reductio ad absurdum to reason to the conclusion that that would
Wait.
be.
Okay. So you use that term
correct.
reductio ad absurdum. So are you saying that the antithesis of the position you're laying out entails a contradiction, or what?
I'm saying that if it would be absurd for you to hold the position that essentially you couldn't really know anything external to your mind.
All right, absurd in what
essentially
sense? That
Why is
it's
that absurd?
logically contradictory, or that it's false, or what?
It's just like the only place that you can go with that is essentially in on itself in the nihilistic, you know,
Oh my
Why
God,
would
why
that
don't
lead
you
to
answer a fucking
nihilism?
question,
belief
man?
essentially.
But
Wait,
even if it does lead to
That's the only way you
nihilism,
can go.
why would it
how
lead
does
to
that make it
nihilism, and
absurd?
why is that absurd?
Because well, basically, you wouldn't necessarily know that anything was true external to your
Isn't
mind, and
this
then
isn't this just an appeal to
nothing like
consequence?
you can just yeah, that's what a reductio ad absurdum is. It's like
Wait,
you're
but
pointing
no,
out
no,
the
no,
fact
that's
that their
not what an
worldview
reductio ad absurdum is.
it will at the conclusion resort to an absurd position where they can't
That's
know
not.
anything
Hang on, what you just said
external
is
to their
not an
mind.
absurd position. For it to be an
Well, that's
absurd position, you'd have to one have already proven that such a position is untrue or
no, you
contradictory.
don't. It's
Of
wildly
course, what
unreasonable.
the
Of
fuck?
course, it's
What?
wildly unreasonable for you to claim that you
Why
can't
would
see
it be
your hand in
wildly
front of you.
Hang on. Okay, so your claim would be that nihilism. This somehow leads to nihilism, and nihilism is
It's
absurd.
just a
Nihilism
nihilistic
is
worldview.
absurd because.
Look, that's not exactly what I said. I said that you'd have a nihilistic worldview if
Why
you
is
were a
that absurd?
solipsist. Most times people
Yeah,
have
you
that. It's
have
not
to show that
necessarily
the
the case.
entailments are absurd, man. I mean, first of all,
Yeah,
you have to show that this position has the
the
entailments
thing
you
that's
say that it has,
absurd.
and then you have to show that those entailments are absurd in one way or another,
Yeah,
or else,
the
yeah,
thing
you're
that's
stuck with
okay.
with an appeal to consequences fallacy, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
the thing that's actually absurd is the denial of your ability to perceive the reality around you when you've clearly got the ability to perceive the world around you.
How have you
But
You're
clearly
all
got
we're
that
asking
literally
for
ability?
is scientific
you're
evidence that says
denying.
that we can find
Look,
that
just
with.
Wait,
calm
Felix,
down.
hang
You're
on, stop.
denying the denying the world that's right in front of you. You'll deny
But
your
the
hand
solipsist
while it's
doesn't
in.
do that.
Just calm down, bro. I didn't interrupt you. You'll deny the world that's right in front of your face. You'll deny your hand when it's right in front of your face, and that's clearly absurd. Is that you know that you've got your hand in front of your face, but in order to deny God, because you hate God and you're suppressing the truth with your unrighteousness, you'll literally look at your hand in front of your face and go, "No,
Okay,
my hand might not be there."
why are you strawmanning solipsists?
That's what they do.
It's
Literally,
not
I'm
what
not
they do. I've
strawman.
already explained to you that that's not what solipsists do.
Okay, are you a solipsist? Are you a
No,
look,
solipsist?
I'm
look,
not personally a
they're at best
solipsist, but that is
skeptical that other
false.
minds
That
exist,
is
man. But you could be a solipsist and think that the hand you
We
fucking
already
see
did
is
this
part of your
earlier.
imagination, right?
Oh, I guess I cut off. Sorry.
Yeah, like fuck me. So yeah, this is nonsense. Look, solipsists don't say my hand doesn't exist. They just say my hand is part of my experience, which does exist. Right? To a solipsist, the only thing that does exist is the experience itself. It's not like things stop being true, it's just that they are true in experience. Like, a solipsist isn't going to say my hand doesn't exist. They only say doesn't exist in the sense that Fox or Christians would say, which is where existence is fundamentally that which is external to the mind, right? It has to be external to the mind to exist in a Christian worldview because it's actually physical. A solipsist says, well, I can't verify that there is a physical world, right? But my hand does exist because it's part of my experience. And my experience exists.
Yeah,
So they
but you're
don't
just
say it
denying the
doesn't exist.
objectivity of the creation, which you're perceiving. You're
But that's
looking
not,
out
that
at the
doesn't mean it's
objective
absurd.
world and then saying, "Oh no, I don't
Look,
know about that."
look, Foxy, it's okay, man. It's not very relevant to the argument, anyways. But yeah, no, I mean,
That's
a
not
solipsist
absurd.
can't believe that his own hands exist. To put it that way, let's move on from
They
that.
do
It's like a red
believe
herring.
that.
They can believe it,
It's
but the thing is that they've got no justification in the position. They can hold the position that, based on their site and stuff like that, maybe actually that they can justify it to some degree,
Based
but
on
they've
their
got
science.
no way. They've got no way
All
of
right,
clarifying the truth value of claims to an ontological
Yeah,
degree.
all right, all right. Maybe that's
Right?
true. What does that have to do with the argument you're giving?
Well, basically, when this guy makes statements from an atheist perspective where he doesn't even know his hand necessarily exists in front of his face, right, and he makes claims about the objective world, then obviously
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I mean, that's
contradicting the
fine. Let's
fact that
concede
he
that he's a
truly
fucking atheist.
believes.
He can't justify any of his beliefs. You said he had a reduction ad absurdum.
Yeah, so okay, so that's okay. So if you get into a position where you're denying your hand in front of your face, I would argue that that is a wildly unreasonable position to hold. Like, you're holding your hand in front of your face. You see the
Yeah, okay,
person on
let's
the
say he does that.
ventilator
I mean,
suffocating
how does that
right in
justify your
front of
position,
you
man?
because they shouldn't be using one of those kind of ventilators, and you're like, no, maybe this is all a magic
Listen,
trick
Foxy,
or a
I'm throwing
dream.
you rope here, man. So
You
you
know,
can to try to help you out, man. You know.
I don't
But
really
yes,
need it.
how does that support your position, man?